This is a huge issue because for too long, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people have been discriminated and outcasted by the very people who signed multiple friendship treaties. These people have been placed at the bottom of a social hierarchy where they are often oppressed and marginalized due to an expression of racism throughout Canada's federal and municipal government. We care about this issue because First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people have been living in these poor conditions for too long, and as a result, have been denied access to basic necessities and have never really fully recovered from the residential schools. There are countless struggles that they have to endure every day that compromises their ability to function in society. My goal is to find a solution to reduce the debt, which is gradually increasing. This is an issue of injustice because your well-being greatly relies on your income, safe housing, educational opportunities, and social involvement. In all of these categories, the Native people are struggling the most to obtain these necessities, and instead of our nation coming together to support them, our government has instead neglected their needs and has only made their lives more challenging throughout the immense amount of time spent living on the same land. Literary Review of Canada magazine called Paper Planes states that there are hundreds of charitable foundations provided for financial and intellectual gain throughout Canada. These foundations provide support for countless institutions, including healthcare, education, and overall financial support. They say that they are astounded by the lack of support that goes on towards Native people. Initially, there were disputes between provincial and federal governments about whose place it was to accept responsibility for assisting Native people, specifically those living on reserves. Federal organizations often neglected Inuit and Métis people. Every year, more and more people are falling below the poverty line. CNN says that at least 50% of First Nations children across Canada are living in poverty. In comparison, only 15 to 16% of children who are non-Indigenous are living in poverty in roughly the same areas. This goes to show how much these people are being neglected by the government. Some questions that I have asked along the way are: how can we reduce debt? What are the average earnings of an Aboriginal person compared to how much they spend? How can we balance and restore equality throughout Canada? What is the cost of living? How can they survive if what they earn is less than what they must pay for food and shelter? What else contributes to debt? And what charitable organizations are providing support for Aboriginal nations? A large factor that contributes to this issue is reduced income. This is when your expenses are greater than your income. Since the average Native person is only making an average of $14,000 to $28,000 per year, this does not provide them with the quality of necessities to live a comfortable life. For the past few years, the poverty cutoff line has been approximately $18,000 for one person, $22,000 for two people, $27,000 for three people, and $34,000 for a family of four. Therefore, the ratio between what they are earning and what they are spending is far different, leaving them in large debt just after 1 year. Another factor is poor money management. A lot of the time, we are spending money unnecessarily without even realizing how much damage it will cause in the long run. When you are poor at managing your money, you are spending your money on something that could go to better use. For example, Native people have a reputation of being substance abusers. Substance abuse comes from the inability to cope with stress. Most Native people are overwhelmed with the struggles of their everyday lives living in poverty, and as a result, they abuse substances such as drugs and/or alcohol. Next are medical expenses. Due to the conditions that most Native people live in, it is not uncommon for them to inherit illnesses, diseases, and infections. Natives have higher rates in chronic diseases, substance abuse, and health conditions overall. Due to the buildup in unpaid tax debt, the government has cut off the Indigenous health care funding in certain locations, such as Western Sydney. This is going to make healthcare more expensive. Also, little savings can contribute to this issue. To prepare for unexpected debt, it is always a good idea to have something to fall back onto in times of emergencies. However, Native people coming out of residential schools would not have made any money.
Also, Indigenous people are not making enough money to start saving up a lot of money. In conclusion, for some, being able to save money is not an option. Living in a dysfunctional family can also contribute to debt because not only the fact that most, if not all, Native people who survive the residential schools are emotionally scarred, leaving with mental disorders from the abuse that they grew up with, contributed to their inability to function in society today. In some cases, the survivor may mirror the same behaviors in which were inflicted on them when in the residential schools. This creates more psychological problems for the generations to come after them. When people live with these issues, often getting a proper education and a stable job is not your main priority. Lastly is a lack of education. If you do not get a proper education, it is difficult for you to be able to make enough money to support yourself and your family. The typical occupation of an Indigenous person only earns them around minimum wage, and in some cases, less. When living in poverty with tons of debt, there are some issues that you may face, such as poor living conditions. 23% of Aboriginal adults are living in houses that are in need of serious repair. Living in poor conditions is a hazard when it comes to your health and safety. Issues that you may see are poor heating, mold, and sometimes infestations. Malnutrition is the second major issue that you may see. Proper nutrition, such as proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, are necessary when it comes to growth, physical, and mental health. In regard to the voices who need to be heard, the Native people all across Canada are owed almost $100 billion by the government from the wealth that was taken from them and their land, in which our former Prime Minister Stephen Harper refused to make a priority. Voices that should definitely be heard are the voices of the Native people themselves. I realize that they have tried in the past on several occasions. However, with the new leadership of Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party, their chances will be greater and hopefully they will have a better outcome. Today, it would take an estimated $1 billion to pull all Native children in Canada out of poverty. With the help of numerous foundations, whose common goal is to improve the lives of all Native people, they will be able to reach a vast amount of people all across Canada. The people who work for these foundations are well educated in their field and will be able to educate the public on the Native issues that are currently occurring. Once their voices have been reached by the public, then they will be one step closer to reaching their goal. This Bible quote states, "Whoever oppresses the poor to increase his own wealth or gives to the rich will only come to poverty." The government has oppressed the Native people from achieving success for centuries, leaving them behind to struggle for land and resources. The encyclical states, "It is not from your own possessions that you are bestowing alms on the poor. You are but restoring them to what is theirs by right." Over the years, more and more promises that the government has made to Native people have been broken, stripping them of their land, culture, language, education, and overall livelihood. These are the possessions that are valuable to Native people and the possessions that the government should return to them. The Catechism says, "God bless those who come to the aid of the poor and rebukes those who turn away from them." This quote is asking God to bless those who help the poor and reprimand those who don't, teaching us that when people are in need, we should reach out and help them. There are various foundations that work towards the same goal, which is to improve the lives of Native people all over Canada. Such foundations include Save the Children, Aboriginal Healing Foundation, the J.W. McConnell Family Foundation, and Legacy of Hope Foundation. Overall, these foundations are here for financial support and also to help with the little things such as food funds to get them back on their feet. Possible solutions are to confide in Justin Trudeau. His overall goal is to promote change, which means restoring fairness and equality to all Native people across Canada. Now would be a great time for the Native people to speak up and request the change that they would want to see in their future. I also suggest that Native people go through proper therapy in regards to whatever they are struggling with, whether it be substance abuse or any mental disorder. Once people are in better states, they are able to take more control of their life and hopefully be able to make wiser decisions regarding their money and how it is spent.